So the superficial front line can be considered the opposite of our superficial back line. Anything that is in front of our body, like our face, our ribs, our hips, and our knees, or in front of the line of gravity, is supported by this line of fascia. It is also used to protect the front of our body. So when we are standing, it runs in one line, and it starts from the sternocleidomastoid down into the fifth rib and the anterior inferior iliac crest. Then it hits our quadriceps, into our patella, and all the way down to the toe extensors, and that's the line it follows. It is also considered the opposite of the superficial back line in movement. So for example, the superficial front line is responsible for knee extension, and then that means that the superficial back line is responsible for knee flexion, and so on. It is also just really there to support us, and although the human body is a system, everything kind of works together, but we can target certain lines. When we want to engage the superficial front line in an exercise, a good example would be a lunge like this, because our patella and our hips are forward, we can feel them, we're putting weight onto our front toes. When we put our hands up, we're engaging the core and the ribs in the front of our body, and if we put our head up as well, we know that our face is also part of that line. And progression to this exercise would just be to take a wider stance like this to increase the base of support, and contrary regression would be a narrower stance because we have a lesser base of support like this. It's easier to fall over. So some points on the superficial back line. It is for the posterior of our bodies to keep us balanced, and it pretty much does the opposite of the superficial front line. It is also integrated when we are standing. It has a lot of slow twitch muscle as opposed to the fast twitch muscle in the superficial front line, because it is there for endurance, and it also counters what the superficial front line wants us to do. So for example, if the superficial front line is telling us to move forward, we have to be able to keep ourselves upright. And it basically runs from the occipital to the sacrolumbar fascia down to the sacrum. It reaches the backs here, the quadriceps, all the way down to the calcaneus and to the bottoms of our feet. Along the way, we encounter the Achilles tendon and the cables of the erector spinae. So when we want to do an exercise to work the back, we will be doing the same lunge, and instead of moving our arms up, we move them out and back. We know that the torso is erect, so we can feel that we're using the back of our body. We again are feeling our quads and the bottoms of our feet for balance. The progression is just a narrower stance, as it always is, to affect the base of support. Lateral lines provide stability when we rotate or move laterally. From the bottom up, it starts at the peroneus brevis to the head of the fibular bone. Then it jumps to the anterior and into the gluteus maximus. It hits both the internal and external obliques, both the internal and external intercostals, and into the splenius capitis. So for movement, again, we will do a lunge, but as we do our lunge, our arms go up and we want to rotate. So if we move our arms this way, we make sure our hips and our torso rotates the opposite way to create that rotation. And we can feel that engaging the obliques and the back and that line. Again, a progression is just a narrower stance, as it's harder to rotate completely, and a wider stance is just a better base of support. So spiral lines create the rotations we perform and then keep them moving properly. It will hit the peroneus longus and tibialis anterior before moving into the biceps femoris and into the tensor fascia. Like the lateral line, it will hit the internal and external obliques. Then it'll go into the serratus anterior. Lastly, it'll go to the rhomboids and into the spinous capitis. So for movement, again, gonna do a lunge, and as we do the lunge, we want to rotate again, but we want to rotate the hip and the torso in the same direction, and we can really feel it kind of hitting the back and the front as it goes up, and the shoulders, and make sure to keep the head up. And the progression is a narrower stance because it is not as good of a base of support, and the line of gravity might have a bigger chance of falling outside of this base of support. So the back and the front functional lines are unique because they do not actually go along the entire body, and they're bigger, as well as they are very deep within our bodies. So the front line goes from the adductor longus, right here, up to the rectus abdominis, and then it hits the chest, or the pectoralis major. So the back functional line goes from the latissimus dorsi to the sacrolumbo fascia, down to the gluteus maximus, and then it actually will hit the vastus lateralis on the outside here. And so an example of the front is engaging our core when we throw something, and an example for the back is probably a jump or a certain type of stretch where you're stretching your back